7:04. I just want to, before we start, let everybody know that if your device isn't already muted, please do so, so that we don't get any background noise. The other administrative item I want to let everyone know about is that tonight's session will be recorded, and the link to tonight's conference will be put on the school board's website so that anyone who missed it or would like to review it can access that starting tomorrow. My name is Martina Savarino. I am the vice chair of the YCPIC committee for this year. I was chair last year and the year before that. As usual, I know that people will trickle in as we go along. We will start, as we normally do, with a prayer, and we will take into consideration all your intentions that you have for today and this evening, and we will start with our prayer in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord, help us to see things like you do. Your word says that there is neither Jew nor Greek. There is neither slave nor free. There is no male and female, for you are all one in Jesus Christ. I pray that you speak to our hearts so that we can remember that no one is better than another because of appearance or any other earthly attribute. I pray that I respect the diversity of mankind and embrace that we are all one. Amen. In the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen. I will also recite our land acknowledgement. We are gathered on the ancestral lands and waters of all Indigenous peoples who have left their footprints on Mother Earth before us. We respectfully acknowledge those who have walked on it, those who walk on it now, and future generations who have yet to walk upon it. We pray to the Creator for strength and wisdom that all may continue to serve as stewards of the earth. And so tonight, back by popular demand, and we promised everyone last year that he would be back, is Dr. Andrew B. Campbell, or as we endearingly know him, DR.ABC. So Dr. Campbell, for those of you who don't know, he is a graduate of U of T. He has a PhD in educational leadership, policy, and diversity. He is currently a faculty member in the Master of Teaching program at U of T and an adjunct assistant professor at Queen's University. He is an Ontario certified teacher. He's been educating for over 25 years in various countries, some of which are warmer than here, Jamaica and Bahamas. And he also has 2 books, Teachable Moments with DR.ABC, A Spoonful for the Journey, as well as The Invisible Student in the Jamaican Classroom. His research and his scholarship focuses on issues of equity, diversity, inclusion, cultural competency, education leadership, 2S LGBTQ+ issues, and teacher performance evaluations. He has been, he's a workshop facilitator, he's a motivational speaker, and he has delivered several keynotes, as we are all aware. Enough about what he does and continues to do. Let's pass it on to you. Welcome, Dr. Campbell. And before you actually go, I'm going to say thank you to everyone for attending this evening. I want to say thank you to our Board of Trustees. I'm not sure who is on, as well as our senior administration at the school board. I know Mr. Sculia is on, so I welcome and thank everyone for attending this evening. On to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Martina. Thank you so much. And it's really good to be here. It's absolutely good to be here and good to see the many faces. What I love is when we started and people were trickling in, we started having just our little conversation. And I actually, you know, when you came in, we said, hey, and we said hi. And I just want to underline that then I think it was Shannon that came in next, and Jamie and our director came in as well afterwards. And just the energy with which people walked into the room, are logged in the space, the smiles, the joy. For me, that is important. That is absolutely important. It says to us that we are coming to the space with joy and hope and courage and love and openness to love to grow into this space. And for me, that is beautiful. And I want to make sure I underline that because that is necessary. As we said before, the session is being recorded. You can come in and out of camera if you wish. You all have permission to do so. It's always good to say, come on camera if you want. Just for a little bit, then you can go back off. That's absolutely fine. But this evening, we're going to have a quick conversation that we had the last time. And we want to get into that conversation talking about allyship, advocacy, talking about equity, diversity, inclusion, and your prayers that you offered up, Martina, set the stage for the conversation. The prayer that you offered up set the stage for all of us to be engaged in this conversation. And so I'm very excited to be the one to share in this conversation with us all. And so what I want to do, I want to start where the idea for our topic is, looking at allyship, advocacy, and action for authentic inclusion. And I love when we were discussing this, Martina, and you represent on behalf of the entire committee, and talk about the word authentic. I remember we having this conversation about the word authentic. And I love that we went there. I really appreciate that we went there, because what has happened is that people, I have been to a number of sessions and meetings, and people are questioning, why is this not happening? Why is that we're doing all we're doing and people are not feeling a sense of belonging? Racialized students are not feeling safer. And I realize it has to do with relationship connections and the lack of trust. And I'm very disappointed when I feel like my students don't trust me. I am hurt by that. And my intention is always, how will I work to increase their trust? How will I make sure they trust me enough to feel safe around me? Because me, saying I am a safe person, saying I am an ally, saying I am a friend, that is just words. And that is why for me, I'm excited when you were intentional. You said, Dr. Campbell, we want more of what we did the last time, but we want to focus on allyship, advocacy, and action. And that made me feel good, because I realized that you understand that it's more than just saying the things. It's more than just saying the things. So what I want to do, I want to take the first, I want to take a minute, and I want to start with a little story. There's a book. Some of you, I'm sure some of you parents have seen this book before. If not you, I may have it in your home. It's a very good book. And I always say, like I said at the last session, let us buy books for our children. Let us read books with our children that they can understand some of these issues, right? And so we want to start with this idea of kindness being a superpower. I want you to think about that for a minute. Kindness is my superpower. So I'm going to get into that. We're going to do a little video on that for about 2 minutes or so, and then we're going to continue our conversation about kindness being our superpower. So let's take a minute to engage. Let's take a minute now to engage in this video, and then I'll come back to you.
Reading Pioneers is proud to present Kindness is My Superpower by Alicia Ortego. I'm Lucas, just an ordinary boy. And this is Teddy, my favorite toy. I like to eat candy, jellies, and cakes. But sometimes I make some mistakes. You see, yesterday I was in a bad mood. So I did something very, very rude. I teased my friend Lisa for her glasses and made her cry throughout all of her classes. When I got home, I saw my mom. She put my hand into her gentle palm. She told me, "Honey, your friend Lisa is so sad. What you did was wrong and bad.
All right, we're going to stop there. And so 3 things I want to point out as we are gathered here, mostly as parents. The first thing in this story that I love, and before I get into that, my last time I was here, I shared with you a number of storybooks, and I still keep getting more books because I keep on explaining to parents, it is important, and I'm going to say this maybe 10 times tonight, it is important that you spend time having conversations with your children about learning about other people, about growing in their own cultural competence. Many of our children, they lack cultural competence. And when you lack cultural competence, then you make assumptions and you go to stereotypes and you foster the single story. And so spend time. So I bought this book, this other one, Chrysanthemum. Many people know this one. It's a very good one. Talks about difference. I got this one, The Name Jar. And I know you are York region, and I can tell you, I have done work in York region, and I could tell you there are issues within our Asian community with our names, with respect for names, pronunciation of names. I was at a school the other day, and I had the most amazing time. School was amazing. Kids from grade 5 to 8, just amazing. And a young lady got up to the front and she said, she wanted to share something. I was asking questions and asking for comments. And she came to the front. I could stop using that screen. She came to the front and she says, when I came to Canada, I had a name that was hard to pronounce. And so my mom changed my name. And then she says, with her, watch her body language, her shoulder, she said, and now I'm Wendy. That broke my heart. That broke my heart that we're still in that space where we are not taking the time to respectfully learn each other's name, to respectfully make connections, to respectfully build relationships. And so I can tell you through books, it's important. Through books, it's important that this tells you. Another one is about Ida. And so we're learning the difference in each other. And I am in love with this new one. This one from an Indigenous perspective. We are water protectors. Powerful books. These books are not just colorful and storybooks. They come with powerful messages. And I want to say to parents, they are very, very good conversation starters. That is why I'm here. That is why I say yes to parents event. That is why I say yes to parent event, because I've always said equity begins at home. Equity begins at home. Inclusion begins at home. Love and care and respect for each other begins at home. But here is the truth. Bullying starts at many persons' home. Name calling, lack of empathy, racism, those things also are nourished and discussed in spaces. So ask yourself, as a parent, what kind of conversations am I having with my child? I think I told this story last year, and I'm going to say it to you again. A teacher, wonderful teacher I know, we had a conversation, and she said to me, she went to the supermarket with her child, and they were in the supermarket, and they saw this very, very old man pass by, and she said, her little boy said, "Mom," and she points, "Mom, he's old." And she said she immediately closed, put her hand over his mouth. And I said, "Why would you do that? Why would you do that?" And I said to her, "Why would you do that?" I said, "It's important that he have those conversations with you." And I said, "You missed a beautiful opportunity, because all you had to say was, yes, he's old." And you could maybe continue and said, "Grandma is old, grandpa is old. Guess who? And I'm going to be old. Mom is going to be old one day. And guess who is going to be old? You." And so we talk about age. And because of that, he would respect and honor age and not grow up to have those issues with ageism and sizeism and those things. So we have to have those conversations. People call them courageous conversations. I call them brave and beautiful conversations. And so I want us not to be afraid of them. And I see you typing in the chat box. The chat box is for all of us. So don't be afraid to say something in the chat if you wish to point something out. So let's continue our conversation as we're talking about kindness and we're talking about setting the stage. So last year when we were here together last year, we started the conversation last year and we started talking about our kindness is our superpower. And we went into this very conversation last year. And so let me get back to that. So last year, when we had the conversation, we actually said inclusion begins at home. And I will be sharing this with a lot of persons. That was last year, May the 9th. I want to leave the date there so you understand. And a few things that we did last year, I want to share with you. We talked about engaging a courageous conversation. We talked about affirming our children in who they are. We talked about providing opportunities to learn about others. And we talked about seizing the moments. We talk an opportunity. We talk about let home be a place of learning and unlearning, and we talk about being an inclusive role model. These were the things that we talked about last year. This was the base of our conversation, and a lot of persons, I'll be having this very conversation with a number of schools, a number of parent groups coming up in the next couple of months. And as we did this, I remember I asked you some questions. And I want to repeat those questions, Martina. One of those questions was, what lessons are we teaching our children about others? I also asked, what assumptions we hold about others? What messages do we give to our children about others? What language do we use when we are describing others? I want you to underline that one. What language do we use? What vocabulary we are using when we describe others? Are we using the term those people? Are we explaining to our students that refugees come to Canada for different reasons? There was a time when refugee was seen as someone from Africa who had nothing to eat and nothing to wear. And we had that kind of stereotype and that kind of assumption. All of a sudden, we are realizing we have Syrian refugees. Now we have refugees from the Ukraine. And I'm sure right now we think about the earthquake. We're going to have other refugees from other countries. So how are we having these conversations? Because I could tell you, there were people who were shocked when they realized there were white people with the word refugee beside their names, because we never told the entire story about who was a refugee. And so when we're having those conversations with our children, are we engaging in those courageous conversations? And I want to say to our parents who are with us, do not be afraid of those conversations. You're going to have them at the level of your child. And that is why I start with storybooks. So if I come to your school to do a talk with your kindergarten or your grade 1, I am not getting into certain conversations. I want to make sure that I am at their level of understanding. So courageous conversations, parents, can happen at every single level. I want to repeat that. Courageous conversations, they happen at every single level. And then the next one we talk about, the next set we talk about, was about how we speak to others with respect. And we underline the word empathy. We underline the word empathy, especially as a Catholic board. And we start our conversations thinking about Christianity, thinking about what would Jesus do, thinking about walking in his footsteps, thinking about being like our Savior. I told Martin, I taught in Catholic schools for years in the Bahamas. And sometimes we would talk to our students about, well, what would Jesus do in this situation? Where is the love and the compassion and the care and the empathy? Those are, let me just say this. I want to share something with you. So I do a lot of conversation I'm going to stop my screen. I do a lot of conversation in equity, diversity, and inclusion. I do a lot of conversation in things like anti-racist pedagogy and abolitionist pedagogy. You name it. We go deep into stuff. Unconscious bias. We go into 2S LGBTQIA plus conversation. We go into what is it to decolonize. I go into the high things. I want you to listen to me carefully. But every time I do a workshop, and I see you, I always like to call people named Tracy, and I see you dealing. Every time I do a workshop, and we get into those theoretical stuff on the pedagogy and the practice, I love to do this. I said to the teachers or listen to me or whoever, I said, now let's get into some of the deeper stuff. And they look at me strange because we just talk about equity, dismantle, disrupt, allyship, advocacy, activism, accomplice. We talk about cultural relevant and responsive pedagogy, unconscious bias. We go all into the equity stuff. We go deep dealing. We go deep into the equity stuff. And then I open my mouth and I say, well, let's get into the deeper stuff, Shannon. And they look at me funny. And I said, and I write some things on my board, and I say, let's talk about love. Let's talk about care. Let's talk about compassion. Let's talk about empathy. And you could see on everybody's face, they get it. They get it. Because what I find, Penny, you know, I like to use names. What I find, Penny, is that we do a lot of performance of equity. There are people right now, Penny, if you meet them in the street, they could unpack every single thing in equity. They could recite the land acknowledgement. They could tell you about unconscious bias. They could tell you all about deficit thinking. You name the language, they have the vocabulary, Penny, but they don't have the heart. They have the vocabulary, but they do not have the heart. And so when I come to speak to parents, I want parents to understand, I'm not giving you the lesser stuff. I am giving you the deeper stuff. And if you follow me on LinkedIn or Facebook or anywhere, you will remember that whenever Dr. Campbell do the deep PhD stuff, I always crown that. I always underline that with the more important stuff. And you said it, Jamie, actions, they speak louder than words. You said it. You said it, Jamie. Actions, they speak louder than words. So as we're doing this conversation, I want you to ask yourself, what are my actions like? So here's some more stuff. And I love this picture. I love picture of the mom with the kids, because we're talking about how are we going to disrupt the bias and the assumptions. I have been to airport. I will never forget. I was in an airport once, Dominic, and I was sitting down, and a little girl she just kept looking at me. Maybe she's about 2. She just kept looking at me, and she just kept staring at me. I think I was in Denver. So, you know, way out there. And she came over to touch me, and I put my hand in a space where I know she didn't have to stretch too far, and she touched my hand and she looked up. And her mom caught my eye, and I caught her mom, and we kind of said, let's watch. And she touched my hand again, and I smiled, and she touched my hand again, and I smiled. And she looked at her mom, and she looked at me. And it was just a beautiful exchange. And I said to her mom, I said, that is it. I said, that is it. She is 2. And her mother explained, of course, they don't live in anywhere where there are Black people like me. They may have seen somebody on a TV or maybe seen a picture. Now there's a Black man sitting beside her. This is not performative. This is not tokenism. This is nothing negative. This is a genuine little 2-year-old girl who have never touched Black skin. And she was so curious. And I allowed her to engage with me. But that comes from a place of honesty, a place of being authentic. That's the word. A place of learning and unlearning. And so we want to get into that. So as we talk, let's begin our conversation in the 3 words that I was asked to really focus on. And the first one is allyship. The first one is allyship. I love this line. I really love this taken from. It says allyship is the active support and advocacy of a person or group who is a member of a marginalized group based on an understanding of their experience and challenges. I always say you know, there's a scripture we talk about, when seeing the multitude, he was moved with compassion. I want to ask us, how are we moving with compassion when we see persons who are marginalized? Are we moving with compassion? Or are we saying, well, why are these people coming to my school? I had a conversation about the changing face of Ontario the other day. And persons have come to understand that the place is changing. But how are you dealing with it? Are you welcoming others? Or are you saying to people, why are you here? Go back to your country. Are we being caught in those negative things? Or are we going to be advocates? And what I love, it said, it's not a static process, but one that requires continual learning. That's why we are here. We are not here to accuse anyone. We are not here to assume anything. We are not here to charge anyone. We are here to gather in a space of learning. And for those of us who may be looking at this video days after, weeks after, I want you to remember that this is a space of learning and unlearning. A lot of what we know, we learn them incidentally. Now you have to learn them and unlearn them intentionally. I want to repeat that. A lot of what some of us learn about others was very incidental. You go somewhere, you heard a conversation about maybe hijab wearing women. You heard a conversation about Black men. You heard a conversation about twist LGBTQ persons. You heard a conversation about trans persons. You heard a conversation about some persons who are in a wheelchair, about deaf students, about blind students. You hear that conversation and we leave it as an assumption. We don't get the facts. We don't get deep into it. And so we want to get deep into it. I remember the first time I went to a school to teach, and there was a hard of hearing class upstairs. I spent a lot of time getting into that classroom just to get to know the students and to understand what I've never understood, because I've never taught in a school with an hard of hearing program. But I made it my business to find out how they interact so I could figure out how will I be able to interact effectively with those students. The learning is on us. It's our job to learn about others. So allyship also involves action. There's that word again. And intentional, there's that word again, to challenge oppressive system. Now I want to jump on that for a minute. How are you challenging oppressive systems? How are you challenging oppressive systems? Or let me ask a question. Are you challenging oppressive system? Dr. Campbell, what do you mean by that? That sounds so deep. That sounds like I'm going to have to write a letter to the director of the board. That means I have to go on some equity committee. Dr. Campbell, I don't have time. That sounds like I have to join the parent activist group. Do I have to go out of York and join some Black racialized group that is fighting against anti-Black racism? That sounds heavy, Dr. Campbell. No, it's not. No, it's not. When I say challenge oppressive systems, and we started with our home, we start with the things that we hear and see around us that is wrong. The language we hear and we said, don't say that. How many times have you heard someone within your space, let me get very personal, within your space, on a plane with you, on vacation, at your cottage, say something really negative and you just ignore it? I have been there. I have been there. I have been there where I'm sitting on having a glass of wine and someone says something really nasty and negative about Indigenous people. And I put my wine glass down. I pulled them aside. I said, let's step outside right over here. And I said, you can't say that. I said, this is a friend. I said, you cannot say that. How many times are you calling out when you see a racist act? You see bullying. You see body shaming. You hear name calling. You hear racial slurs. I went to a school the other day, Dominic, our director of education, Dominic. I went to a school, they asked me to come in because they said there was a lot of racial slurs. And I said something I think was powerful. I think this resonated with them a lot because they kept reminding me of it. I was talking to the students. We had a good talk. And then I said to the teachers, how are you reacting? What is your body language? What is your facial expression? What stance are you taking? How are you standing in that power when you hear the student saying something wrong, like a racial slur? How are you delivering the message that that is wrong? In our story earlier, you saw three things. The little boy made a mistake. Things happened. He made a mistake. You saw that he owned it up. He said, I was in a bad mood and I did this. I want you to listen carefully. He made a mistake and he owned it to it. He said, I was in a bad mood and I did this. And then the most beautiful thing we saw was when the mom said to him, what you did was wrong. What you did was bad. I'm going to write a letter right now to you. Dear parents, how are you engaging in conversation with your children about these issues? I hope we are correcting our kids and our children in love. I hope we're telling them when they are wrong. I want to repeat that, parents. I hope we're telling our children. He said, remember he said, the Torah said, she put my hand in her palm. That for me was care. That for me was love. He said, she put my hand in her palm. And then she said to me, what you did was wrong. How are we correcting our children? How are we having those conversations? It is challenging. It is challenging. But how are we working at having that conversation? How are we working at having that conversation? It's a learning. Nobody here gets a star for perfection. We are not giving out perfection stars because we know it's challenging. So don't you worry. I am not here to give out perfection stars. I'm here to say, are we learning? Are we growing? And so I love this part. It talks about creating a safe space for dialogue and collaboration. And I love this, between individuals of different background and experiences. Differences are okay. Differences are beautiful. We should celebrate our differences. Is that the stance we're taking in our schools? Are we using the word celebrate our differences? Or some of us are still stuck at tolerating? I hope you are not stuck at tolerating. And I have a funny feeling that none of you are. Because I always say to people, when people spend the time to come to these kind of events at 7 p.m. on an evening like this, it says to me, you are intentional. It says to me, as a parent, as a teacher, as a staff member, you are intentional. As a community member, you are interested. How are we working at that? Allyship is a critical tool. And so when we talk about allyship, there are various forms of allyship. And one of them we have is the convenient allyship. Convenient. What does that look like, Dr. Campbell? It looks like during George Floyd 2020, when everybody was just saying Black Lives Matter on Facebook, you know, you just shared it. You shared it, Tim. It's okay, you shared it. Very convenient. You know, grandstanding. You know, many persons, a personal reward. Oh, well, I'm going to write a check for $1,000 for this organization. And before you know it, everybody knows you wrote a check, but we don't hear nothing about the people you write the check for, because you have turned it into a grandstanding for yourself. Nothing is wrong with taking a photo up. Let me make that very clear. Nothing is wrong with sharing the good news. But now we are hearing more about you on the check than those you try to help. This is the danger, everyone. When as an ally, we center ourselves. I want you to decenter yourself, pull yourself back, and push those you want to help forward. We have to learn how to decenter ourselves if we are true allies and not center ourselves. Be humble, Renee says. Thank you, Renee. It says be humble. Absolutely. Thank you for that. So it's convenient. Convenient allyship. And then we go into what we call, this now is a troublesome one, the performative allyship. And I'm going to get deeper into that in a minute. The performative allyship. And then we have the optical allyship. And I want to read something for you about this one, because something really stood out to me. I want to read something for you. The writer Latham Thomas says, allyship, optical allyship, is allyship that only serves at the surface level to platform the ally. It makes statements, but does not go beneath the surface. Can I tell you a little secret? We are tired of statements and no action. I want to repeat that. We are tired of seeing statements and no action. Everywhere you go, there's a statement on the anti-Asian hate, a statement on the bombing, a statement on the shooting, a statement on the police murder, a statement on this, a statement on that. But what we do afterwards is lacking. People are waiting for our actions. They're waiting for our individual actions. They're waiting for actions as a school. They are waiting for actions as a board. Allyship is on many levels. They are waiting for your individual action. They are waiting for your school action. They are waiting for your board action. People are tired of just a statement. A statement is good, but we want to see something intentional. Many boards have placed statement out about hate in school, bullying, name calling, lack of representation, hiring practices, but we have not seen the actual action behind it. So we don't want to be optical, where you stay on the surface. We want to go deep. We want to be true allies. Performative allyship, I want you to look at it. It's centering yourself. You are benefiting. It's about the optics. I have been asked to do a lot of workshops, a lot of talks. I am very humbled, and I be honest when I say this, I'm very humbled and I'm very blessed, and I do not take it for granted. People don't know, sometimes I leave a workshop and I'm so overcome and by humility and that I've been used in such a way. I cry in my car on my way home because it comes from my heart so heavily. And I want to say to you, I have been in spaces where I have had to say to people who want me to speak, I have said to them, that's not what I do. That's not what I do. I have had people who what they want is optics. They want you to say this, to say this. They want the black man to say this, so the parents would hear this. They want the indigenous woman to say this, and she must wear the feather, and she must come with a drum, and she must do a dance, and they want this, and all of it's about the optics. There is no heart. There is no authenticness in it. You have to be authentic. You know, let me tell you something. When I go to space and I talk about racism, and I see a room full of white persons feel funny, I stop. I said, I am not here to talk about, to call you a racist. I said, how would I and could I do that? Why would I even try to think of doing that? I said, but I want us to understand we are a part of a society with a lot of racism happening. We are part of a society where there's structural and systematic racism. Nobody's saying you are a racist. We're saying you are here. We see the things happening. What can I do? So let me give you an example what happened. I'm sure you heard the news. If you didn't hear the news, a terrible thing happened. A little black girl was beaten in London. You see, it's all over social media. All over social media. I watch it, it broke every part inside of me. And because I'm black and I know certain things about a black girl's hair, well, the first thing I noticed in the video, I noticed how many times she was being pulled by her hair. And then the news came out that 6 pieces clump of her hair was pulled from her skull. I want you to understand, as a human being, as a teacher, as a school caregiver, as a mom, a dad, a grandma, auntie, welcome all of us who are here. What do you feel when you hear that? What do you feel? Because you have to feel something on the inside. If you're not feeling, you have to check yourself. What am I feeling? Because if you're not feeling, then you're doing all of this here, all this performance. It's the branding. It's the public relations. It's the centering yourself. So we don't want performative. What we really want here is authentic allyship. I love authentic allyship. I want you to look at the right side of your screen, and what you're going to love is the first thing that says educating yourself. I love this. Look at the top, it says empathy. But look beside it, it says grief. Look beside it, it says outrage. I'm going to surprise you. I did not notice the word outrage until today. I have used this slide before a number of times. Today, just like, I don't know, maybe it's a spirit, let me see the word outrage. How are you moving with compassion? You know, I remember the story of the feeding of the 5,000. And when the disciple says, you know, it's late, Lord, send them home. And he said, no, they have been with me. He want to make sure he feed them. How are you feeding others when you see hunger, when you see marginalization, when you see nakedness, when you see hurt, when you see lack of belonging, when you see sadness? A student says to me, sir, I have not been into school for this week because of my mental health. I wrote her a message. I said, is there anything I can do? Do you want to talk? She's seen a counselor. I said, well, you have assignment for me. I said, you can get an official extension. You don't need any paperwork. You can get an extension. I am extending care. I'm extending empathy. How are you moving when you see issues that needs your attention as an ally? You and I want to be allies. So I'm going to share you another video. I'm going to share to you a beautiful video, about 3 minutes. You're going to love this one. And this video, I want to show you, there's a picture here, but one of our singers, Lizzo, got an award. And I was moved by this video. So let me set up the video for you. Lizzo, a singer, she got an award, Penny, she got an award, Penny, for trailblazer, for being an ally, for being standing. And what she did, I hope that I am able to do that. I hope I have the heart. I hope I have that in my heart. I hope I am that person. I hope I have that level of love and care in my heart. So what she did, Penny, she got the award and she shared the space. I want to watch this video. She shared that space and called onto the stage persons who have been doing the real work. And this won my heart. And I want you to listen. I want you to listen intentionally as she describes the work of these people. I want you to listen very, very intentionally. I want you to listen to the number of issues. I want you to listen to the issues that she's bringing up and the causes. Listen to the issues and the causes. Please do that, because you're going to realize allyship comes in many formats. You don't need to tie yourself to a building to be an ally. You don't need to march down the street to be an ally. You don't need to lie down in the middle of the street to be an ally. You don't need to write policies to be an ally. There are many ways to be an ally. Think about what is your gift. Think about what is your talent. Think about what is your capacity, and ask yourself, what can I do with all that I have? Remember the story of the man with the talents. What can I do with the talents that I have to help others? Let's take a little watch here with Lizzo.
My mama, y'all. Okay. So I'm gonna be honest, when I first heard about this award, I was on the fence about whether I should accept, because if I'm the people's champ, I don't need a trophy for championing people. You know what I'm saying? I'm here tonight because to be an icon isn't about how long you've had your platform. Being an icon is what you do with that platform. And ever since the beginning of my career, I've used my platform to amplify marginalized voices. So tonight, I am sharing this honor. Make some noise for the people, y'all. These are all activists and people that I think deserve this spotlight. Make some noise for them right now. Yes, thank you.
Champion.
This is Mari Copany, better known as Little Miss Flint. She spent the past 8 years fighting to ensure everyone in Flint and in communities across the nation has access to safe drinking water. She's only 15 years old. This is Shirley Raines. Through her organization, Beauty to the Streets, she makes the human connection with the unhoused people of Los Angeles and makes them feel loved and love what they see in the mirror. Make some noise. This is Yasmin Aker. She's an Iranian-American grassroots activist. She is a voice for the voiceless and works with various organizations supporting the Iranian women and people's fight for freedom and democracy. This is Emiliana Guerreca, and if you've been to a women's march, she's probably behind it. As the founder of the Women's March Foundation, she helps amplify our voices. Meet Esther Young Lim. She's the author of the booklet, How to Report a Hate Crime, and seeks to eradicate barriers and empower the Asian American and Pacific Islander community. Here's Felicia Faye Montes. She's a Chicana indigenous artist and activist, co-founder of the groundbreaking women's collective Mujeres de Maíz. She has created a safe platform for indigenous women of color to express themselves. This is Jayla Rose, a professionally trained dancer who is making sure there's space for transgender and non-binary performers in the dance community. Watch out for that big girl. Meet Kara Roselle Smith, a member of the Chappaquiddick Wampanoag tribe. She works tirelessly to seek justice for Black and indigenous communities and is fighting for land back and reparations. This is Maggie Mireles, and her sister Eva Mireles was a teacher and a hero who lost her life protecting her students during the school shooting in Uvalde, Texas. Maggie is continuing her fight against senseless and despicable gun violence that has become far too common. Make some noise.
So I want to stop there. And you can I can put the copy of the video in the box so you can see that and watch the rest of it later. So as we watch that on our screen in just now, I want to ask you what come to your mind? What did you center in that as you think about it? As you think about the causes, there are many ways to be an advocate. And as we get, close to wrapping up, I want to leave this with you. So, good. And so the question I had was, what will I do? These people are doing stuff, water, violence, safe drinking water, beauty in the street, homelessness, gun crime, women's right, indigenous right, dealing with victims of sexual violence and molestation. Like what will I do? Persons are dealing with persons who have gone through body shaming and colorism. What will I do? What can I do? What will I do? And so that is advocacy. Advocacy is figuring out what can I do on behalf of someone else? How can I use my gifts, my talent? What can I do? What can I do? Shannon and I had the same response. When I saw that, tears ran down my eyes. And all I could think of is, I hope I do have the strength and the power and the honesty in me to stand up for others. I had to check myself, Shannon. Am I standing up for others? Am I being selfish? Am I using my power, my access? Am I moving with care and compassion? Am I moving with empathy? Have I been complicit? I have asked myself those questions, Shannon. So I want us to think about it. The incident we talk about, I'm going to move on. The incident we talk about, here is the headline, everybody. That's the headline. Black girl viciously attacked. It's all over the internet by a gang of girls. I watched it. What hurt me in this video was no one intervened. There's a news video of the parents coming to demonstrate, and the teacher was standing there, and the gentleman, you could see the hurt. He said, no one intervened. No one intervened. Thank you, Jamie. Lift others. Thank you, Renee. Be a voice for the voiceless. No one intervened. Let me tell you something. Let me give you a little minute. Why we need allies. Why we need allies. We need allies because not everybody has the same power, access, voice, strength, opportunity, privilege. Not everyone. I have been to places where things have happened to me and people apologize quickly and they go, and I stop them and I said, I am not having this conversation because of me. I can take care of myself. I am a qualified person with a PhD, financially stable. I have a very strong personality. From when I was a child, I was always somebody who could champion myself. But I said, I am talking to you because there are other persons who you have done this to who could not champion themselves. And so when you think about advocacy, you think about how do I work to disrupt some of these kind of headlines. Here's the next headline. How do you work to disrupt? When I saw this headline in 2017, all I asked myself is, which teacher on staff at that school said something? That's what I asked myself. I wanted to know which teacher on staff said something to disrupt this garbage. That's what I want to know. When I see another headline like this, I ask myself, how are we using this in our classroom? How are we having conversation about hate? Because there is hate around us. How do we tell our children that there is hate, but I want you to rest in love? There is hate, but we are growing you in love. There is hate, but I want you to move in love and care. How are we handling these events? Our kids, our students, our children need to know what's happening around them. That is what you call critical cultural consciousness. And if there are teachers in the house, I know there are teachers in the house, we talk about culturally relevant and responsive pedagogy. There are 3 tenets. One of those tenets is teaching our children to increase their cultural competence, but also to allow them to have that critical cultural consciousness. They need to know what is happening around the world. You are not protecting your child from not letting them know the bad news. You're not protecting your child from prevent them from seeing anything wrong. Because the truth is, when they go there, they hear it, they see it in schools. Here's another headline. How are we doing those things? When we talk about First Nations, we do land acknowledgement. but we refuse to talk about what's happening to indigenous people. We like to do land acknowledgement. Nothing is wrong with that. I believe in it. I do it. But is it just a performance? Is it something you say because you're supposed to say it at the beginning of a program? Is it something you say because the director says we should say it? Is it something we say? Why are we saying it? Do we move in honesty afterwards? We have one more headline for you. This happened right in the middle of Pickering here. This happened. How are we fighting against these issues? How are we, when we see these headlines, how are we moving as we wrap up this conversation? How are we moving to action? So I want you to ask yourself as we part company this evening, ask yourself as a parent, what am I doing? Listen me carefully to my question now. What am I doing to ensure my child's school is safer for all children? Not just my child. If it's about your child, then that's not advocacy. What am I doing to ensure that my child's school, all the children there feel a sense of belonging? I have a good news to share with you, Martina. Martina, come back on camera. I have a juicy news to share with you. I was at a school the other day. I was at a school. It's York Region. I'm sure it's York Region. I was at a school, and the principal, beautiful school, like, God, it's gorgeous, a new school. And we're talking to the principal, and she says, you know, the school, she said a lot of things are blown her mind. She said one of the things is whenever they have any event, she said, or anything that costs money or anything, she says, before you know it, parents will say, I will pay for my child and 7 children. I will do this for my child, and here is money for 5. And she says it works so well. And those who don't have, it's never a big thing. It's never posting on a board. It's never in deficit. It's never embarrassment. She said the community shows up for each other. She says, Dr. Campbell, one thing I've been amazed by is how the parents show up for each other. She said it's just like that. One parent will say, here's the money for my field trip, and here's money for 4 other kids. You decide which 4 gets it. And she said that's how we are doing all the amazing things we are doing. So parents who are listening to me, I want to let you know there are many ways for you to act. No, you don't need to march if that marching is not your thing. You don't need to tie yourself to a gate if that is not your thing. You don't need to go to a midnight candlelight vigil if that is not your thing. Figure out, what can I do? What is your gift? What is your blessing? What is your talent? What are the things you can do to make change? And I'm going to leave you with another good example, Martina. I know a certain school where the library is lacking. When I say lacking, I mean lacking in anything that is culturally competent. And the librarian says, we do not have a budget. And the parent says, well, guess what? We're going to get it together. And the parents brought in books of Black authors and racialized authors, brought in books and indigenous stories, and they stock up the school library with all the contribution of parents who the drive was about, let's bring in book that has representation. So they brought in all the books. What can you do? That is the action. And so as we close this evening, I want to leave us with the following example of Christ. I like to center it. I'm not doing it because this is a performance. I grew up Christian. I'm Christian. I taught in Catholic schools, that I told you before, in the Bahamas. And we always tie in our lessons. We always learn as teachers to tie in our lessons. And I said everywhere he went, he was doing good. The love of Christ is demonstrated through us. I'm going to surprise you, Martina. This second statement, I talked about that very statement today at a big meeting. I said the love of Christ, because there were Catholics in the presence. And I said, when we talk about actions, remember the love of Christ must be demonstrated through us. No, there is no such thing as Jesus coming to your school, Martina. to do. There's no such thing. There is no such thing. You know, when Jesus comes to your school, Martina, it comes through you and I. It comes through your kindness. It comes through your action. And so we have to remember that we have to demonstrate the love of Christ. We are his arms extended. We are his arms extended. He's no longer down here multiplying 5 loaves and 2 fishes. We are the one doing the multiplying. I want to close with that very strong message. We are the one doing the multiplying. We are the one doing the 5 loaves and the 2 fishes. We are the one feeding those who are hungry and thirsty among us. We are the one being the peacemakers. It's not just a fairy tale. We are the peacemakers. We are the one being moved with compassion and care. We are the one who is making connection to those who are cast out. They talk about Jesus going among the tombs. Jesus at the gate, beautiful. Jesus going to the well. Jesus going to Lazarus, who nobody wanted to be because he had leprosy. Sorry, not Lazarus, the man with the leper. We are the ones now connecting to the people who are cast out. Think about who in our society have been cast out. Thank you, Renee, to be even Christ-minded. Thank you, Martina. And our love grows through us. And so I leave you with this. What will Jesus do? And remember, my final slide, it's a journey. It's a journey. Be kind to yourself on this journey and be kind to others. It is a journey. None of us, Director of Education, Sir Dominic, love and appreciate you. I've had good, amazing learning with you together. None of us, sir, will get this A+ award for this anytime soon. There is so much for us to learn. So I want us to be patient with each other, patient with ourselves, but I also want us to be in a hurry to care for each other. I want us to be patient with ourselves, but I want us to be in a hurry to spread his love, to throw a smile across the room, to throw a wave across the room. Let our school be the school where new children come to our school and they come off the plane and we know they come to our school the first day they come to Canada and they are scared and it's a strange school. Let us know how to wrap them in love. No one else should say welcome to Canada better than a classroom full of children. And teachers who are listening to me, your job is to make sure you do that. Saying good morning is not enough. Let us make sure we extend a welcome so that feel a sense of belonging. Many of our students and our parents and even staff members do not feel a sense of belonging. We have to make sure we do that. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for being on this journey with me. Thank you so much for knowing that this is a journey and you have a role to play in this journey. Thank you for having me. You have energized me. I sound like it's 9 o'clock in the morning, right? But you have given me that energy. You have given me that energy. Thank you so much. Martina, it's over to you to say thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Campbell. I'm at a loss for words, to be quite honest. And like you, every time we have a chat like this and a presentation like this, I feel like I can go out there and conquer the world. I want to thank you immensely for your conversation. I think it doesn't end here. I think this is just the tip of the iceberg. We all need to, like you said, dig a little deeper and have those uncomfortable moments where we have those conversations. And I think we can do a lot more. Yes, we are a Catholic board, but we're not perfect. And I think there is much work to be done. In the words of Mother Teresa, we cannot all do great things, but we can all do small things with great love. And if each one of us does one little small thing, imagine how much that could change maybe just our little part of the world, but then that can grow. It's like paying it forward. So I personally think there's a lot of work to be done, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. And I want to thank you so much for this conversation and for leading the journey.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And on that note, I wish you a wonderful evening. Good night, everybody. Thank you for attending. If you want to review the video, it'll be on our board's website tomorrow at some time. I'm thinking maybe in the afternoon.
Yes.
But again, Dr. Campbell, you haven't seen the last of us, and I'm hoping we haven't seen the last of you. So have a wonderful, wonderful evening.
Good
Can we
night,
get-
Night,
everyone.
everybody.
Good night, good
Can we
night, good
get
night.
that-
You
we
can
get
turn
that
on your
YouTube?
mic, everybody, and say good night. I see our director would like to say something. Go ahead,
I just
everyone.
wanted to get that YouTube of that video that you showed of all
Yes,
those
okay,
women.
well, let's stay right there. I'm going to put it in the box, director. Please stay right there, everybody. And
That
I'm
was
gonna put it in the
powerful.
box. Thank you so much.